Yo, what up, guys? Dan Thury at Thury BFF back here again for your Week 14 starts and sits. Week 1 of Fantasy Playoffs edition. Not all leagues are in the playoffs right now. I got a few of my leagues that haven't started yet, being that our playoffs are weeks 15 and 16, but the stress is still very real. Just lost my 10-game winning streak, and I haven't even clinched a playoff spot in that league yet. But to each its own. Fuck that shit. Moving on. Before we jump into my start and sets, we're going to hit up some news. Jordan Reed's already been declared out for Week 14. Fire up your Vernon Davis, even though it's not a good play. More on that later. The Chiefs have suspended Marcus Peters for Week 14 for his actions last week. He's their only halfway decent corner in that secondary, which is now even worse. Love Crabtree this week. I think he'll feast. Even guys like Cordell Patterson or Seth Roberts could have a decent day. And sad rookie news, I guess. Bengals have placed John Ross, rookie receiver, on IR, ending his very, very depressing rookie year. He's been banged up all season long. When he finally got healthy, I think he played 3 games, if that. He's been a healthy scratch the last couple weeks, and Josh Malone, their other rookie receiver, I believe was a 3rd-round pick, had overtaken him on the depth chart. Not a good start for him. As a show, we didn't like him. We liked his talent and what we saw, but we didn't like his fit, and we didn't like where he was. We didn't like where he was drafted, his fit wise, and not good for him. And then just do our injury roundup like I normally do on Wednesdays. Robert Woods did not practice per his shoulder. Mark Ingram didn't practice again today per his toe, and it looks very questionable for Thursday night. If you own Mark Ingram, have alternative options in place. I wouldn't play anybody else from that game. I don't like the matchups for Coleman or anybody else. But make sure you have him out of your flex. That's the biggest thing. And make sure I would not play him personally. Playoffs, banged up, not a good matchup. Falcons have been pretty good on defense this season. I know he's been fantastic. He's been great, but he's not healthy, and it's really hard to trust that. You gotta wait for reports tomorrow. See how he is during practice and pregame warm-ups. Not practice, pregame warm-ups. Injury news drops, or the actives and inactives will drop an hour and a half before kickoff. So pay attention. I know a lot of you guys will be getting out of work then, but I would be looking for better options now. Hunter Henry was limited in practice today per knee. Jonathan Stewart did not practice per foot. And Greg Olsen, though, did practice in full and looks to be back on track against the Vikings this Sunday. More on him later. Zach Ertz still in concussion protocol, though it did just drop here shortly that Doug Peterson, I think his name is, I don't remember. Sorry, my bad. Feels very confident in him playing this weekend. But still, he owns Zach Ertz. Pick up Trey Burton. You saw what the Eagles did with Trey Burton as soon as Ertz went out with his concussion. So if you own Ertz, pick up Burton if you haven't already. Mixon did not practice per his concussion, and he is still in the concussion protocol. Doesn't look great right now. The way that Gio played last on Monday night against the Steelers, even suggests maybe they just sit him out. This being Mixon. Again, look for other alternatives this week. Doug Martin did practice today, has not been cleared from his concussion protocol yet, but he does look to be on track to play this weekend with his vanilla that he's been this season, which is I've been completely wrong, like a lot of people have, and how good as Peyton Barber looked last week against Green Bay, being their first running back to have their first running back on their team to go over 100 yards in a game this season. I still expect him to get a fair amount of carries, this being Peyton Barber. So I do not like Doug Martin at all this week, even if he does play. Lastly, Chris Hogan is finally back at practice. Dealing with his shoulder injury. No Gronk this week, so they would definitely love to have Chris Hogan back. For those of you that don't know, Gronk was suspended along with Juju Hopefully it was covered in the news yesterday. Either way, though, that's that. Moving on to starts and sits of the week. As always, I start with the boom so we can destroy players later. Again, I'm still figuring out a better way to do this format. For this is I'll do my start of the week and my sit of the week, which will be, again, what you'll hear on the podcast, which we'll be recording tonight and dropping either sometime late tonight or early tomorrow. So my start of the week is Frank Forever RB12, which is really RB5, Gore. He gets probably the best matchup of this week. He gets a Buffalo defense that has, of course, mightily struggled against running backs since really trading Darius away to Seattle. Over their last 4 weeks, though, they've given up 9 touchdowns and nearly a 6 yards per carry mark. I'm not afraid that Marlon Mack did out-snap Frank Gore. I'm not that concerned about it. This is still Frank Gore's team, still Frank Gore's backfield. They're going to kind of lean on him. And this is just a plus matchup all around. I love Frank Gore this week. And as a flex option, definitely love him this week. Moving on to now quarterbacks. Mr. Phillip Rivers himself, it's been dominant here since their bye week. Hasn't had a game less than 17 points since that bye week, which I believe was in week 10. He's had a 32-point game in there as well, which I believe was on Thanksgiving. Last week against the Browns, he could have had a huge game, but because they settled for field goals, it didn't turn out to be that way. Now he gets a middle-of-the-road Washington defense, and as hot as Rivers been right now, you got to throw him out there, especially with Keenan Allen and him really clicking again. And then my other starter is Case Keenum. I've been really back and forth on him. Last week concerned me more than most. In terms of an actual football perspective with how the offense looked, how things were going. Keenum posted a great day at 19 points, I think, in my Dynasty League scoring format, which is 5 points per touchdown pass. And he's been dominant with that. He's been very consistent since our bye week. He's had no less than 18 points. And he's had, a couple near 30-point games in there with that. Carolina's also been struggling. They've been pretty good on the year, but as of lately, they've just really haven't been able to get it going. So this is a good opportunity for Keenum and a good streaming option. You may see this as a bad matchup, but this is why looking a little bit deeper into the numbers and deeper in just what you've been watching and seeing, not even need to look at numbers to see that the Panthers have been struggling in their secondary. The Vikings have one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the league, though it looked a little worse last week against Atlanta. This week should be a lot better. Carolina doesn't have a secondary. Then again, neither did Atlanta, so that's why I've been back and forth, but I am pro Case Keenum this week. Running backs. I already talked about Frank Gore, so we'll talk about the other one. The one that I almost made my start of the week. This is Marshawn Lynch. Look, ever since Jack Del Rio and this Raiders coaching staff figured out that they need to use Marshawn Lynch more than 18 touches a game, he's been kind of going off. Carr's been struggling. Crabtree was suspended. Cooper's been banged up. Both of them have been pretty inconsistent. Carr is really only been making one mainly relevant in most games, and there's games where both of them really haven't been. But here comes Marshawn. He's got 25 touches a couple weeks ago. I think he had over 20 last week. He's back in this mode. And I think the Raiders have actually figured this shit out. The Chiefs, and the Chargers are all 6-6. This is a very important matchup for them. They beat the Chiefs in Week 7, which kind of jump-started their season again. This is a very important game. You get the head-to-head matchup on them, which would be fucking huge for the Raiders. This is big, and I love Marshawn this week because of it. Also, Marcus Peters, it's out. He's suspended. This is from the Chiefs, as I just mentioned before in the news episode. That's why I love Crabtree this week. And I think this also helps Marshawn because now the passing game should be even more dominant, creating chances for more red zone opportunities and just a better overall day. Moving on to receivers. Mike Wallace. Look, the Ravens' passing game has been a joke. There's no denying that. Last week, though, Flacco posted his best day against the Lions. He had a couple touchdowns, threw nearly 300 yards. Mike Wallace was a big help for that. He went 5 for, I think, 115. He's their big play guy, and he is their number one receiver. Inter in Pittsburgh, tough divisional matchup. A lot of, we just saw what happened with Cincy and the Steelers on Monday night. Ravens and the Steelers are a little more, they're a lot less, chippy per se when it comes to after the play calls. They're just really good fucking games. This is a revenge game for Mike Wallace. Also, Pittsburgh's have allowed guys like Andy Dalton and fucking Brett Hundley to go off on them, both on primetime type of games. And the number one receivers went off, and Adams went off against Pittsburgh. We saw what A.J. Green just did to the Steelers, and that could have been even a bigger game had that bullshit holding call been called back. That bullshit holding call wasn't called back. I like Mike Wallace this week. Number one receiver in Baltimore. Revenge game, what we've seen so far. He's a good flex play this week. Next, Marquise Goodwin. Now, you guys may be asking, why am I not going for more known names or bigger names? I'm trying to – you're going to start your studs. And a lot of people are going to be, debating between flex options, so I wanted to kind of go in that route. So that's why I kind of went from not so obvious names, guys like, Bell or like Hyde and shit like that. So Marquise Goodwin, to get back on track here. Look, it's been a small sample size for what we've seen from Goodwin and Garoppolo. But what we saw last week at Lights, I think we had 9 catches for 80-some yards. He had multiple. He had double-digit targets. And Garoppolo's a lot better quarterback than what we've seen the Niners throw out there. And Goodwin's going to get his own now. Garoppolo's pick last week, I believe it was too good one. Bullshit, but either way, flex option. Goodwin's a low-end flex option. This is more for a little bit deeper leagues. But he's got a great matchup. They get Houston. Houston's secondary is fucking garbage. Their teams actually looked worse overall. Even their run defense has been kind of suspect. And their secondary is still bad. They got a decent offensive line. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's not like fucking Redskins bad right now. But I like Garoppolo this week, which means I like Marquise Goodwin this week. I like him in a little bit deeper league. So if you need that flex play, I think even a boom play. I think even in PPR leagues, I still like him too. Moving on, tight ends. One of the more obvious names here, and that's Cameron Brate. Look, Winston loves his binky. If you don't get the reference, we made a lot of this reference in last week's episode when talking about this game. Brate had himself a great game against arguably one of the best defenses against tight ends this year. They allowed 1 touchdown. This is the Packers to tight ends all season long. And Brate said, fuck your couch. I'm going to get 2. And he got his 2. Winston loves Brate. Winston will keep going to Brate. He's his red zone darling. He's his third down darling. They may have Mike Evans, but it's Brate. And with Winston back and healthy, we get to see that potential top 5 tight end again. I love Brate this week. And even worse so, the Lions have been pretty bad against tight ends. Over the last 4 weeks, they've been the 4th worst against tight ends. And with guys like Gronk on suspension and Ertz in his concussion protocol, Brate could be a guy that wins you and propels you to Week 15, second round of the playoffs, or into the fantasy playoffs if your playoffs don't start till next week. Next is Jack Doyle. Look, we love Jack Doyle. Me and Hopper have been hyping him quiet to start the year, unknown with Brissett, but he is their top pass catcher in Indy. And Jacksonville understood that, and they stopped him last week. He gets a lot easier option in Buffalo, who has just been getting worse defensively as, injuries and things have been figured out and shit like that. Brissett is not a great quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be able to rely on T.Y. as much. I like Doyle this week. This is a lot easier matchup. He should be a safer player this week. And like I said, injuries to Gronk and Ertz, not injuries to Gronk, but suspension with Gronk, injuries to Ertz. You may want to be like, oh shit, I need that. Doyle may have been dropped for some reason. Get him out there, throw him out there. I love him this week. That's it for my starts. Moving on to sits. Like I did with starts, I do have my sit of the week. Show favorite, Hopper's forever, you know, forever man crush. Loves this guy. We as a show love this guy, but I don't think we can ever top Hopper's love of him. That's Cooper Kupp. Look, I understand Woods is out, and the Kupp is Goff's kind of safety blanket. He loves Kupp. But reading up on some Michael Fabiano stuff, came across something he put out, and they said that the Eagles have allowed the fewest catches and yards to slot receivers this season. Now, from the middle of the season, may not care as much. May have to just play it and say, you know what, I think it could happen. We're in the fantasy playoffs, though, bros and girls. Like, you can't just, go out there. You got to play your matchup when it comes to your flex plays. Kupp right now is a low-end wide receiver to flex play. I have him ranked that way. You may have to throw him out there because of depth or just whatever, but just know how good the Eagles have been against them right now. And that's why this is important to say when you're not discussing your start and studs, they start your studs type of players like Julio, whatever. Kupp kind of becomes in that range where you have to, I may like him, but you may have to, put feelings aside and play the matchup. Excuse me. So moving on to quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota. I've defended this fucking asshole. I love you, but I've defended you. You're still one of my faves, man. I love watching your game, but man, have you struggled this season? It's been tough. This is a plus matchup in my eyes on paper. As the Cardinals have been slightly above average against quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. They've been a little bit better, but they're still sixth worst on the season. This is still a plus matchup for them. You saw what he did to Houston last week. Nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. And when just like the opposite of wanting to play matchups, you also have to trust the player that you're throwing out there. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks that I don't trust less than Mariota right now. He's just not getting it going. The running game and points have been saving you. But if you play in a league way more than 3 points per touchdown or whatever, like, you can't trust Mariota. He's just not getting it done. The next is Hopper's forever love wife, Mr. Jesus himself, Blake Bortles. This is no shocker, though. Seattle's still a very, very good pass defense. They have a fantastic front seven. Bobby Wagner has been mentioned plenty of times as maybe being the defensive player of the year, and it's been the reason why Seattle really hasn't given up a shit ton of points outside of their one shootout game against Houston. And this Jags offense isn't great. Bortles has been fantastic, and in plus matchups, he's not a bad screen option at all. But this is not a pass offense, and if Jacksonville can get the running game going with Fournette, Bortles could have a long day. But there is a note here. They can contain their pass rush, and the Seahawks don't blitz that much. They love to just trust their guys up front to make plays. Now, granted, this was when they had all their secondary guys healthy, and they don't really have – they have a depleted secondary right now, so they can contain this pass rush. Bortles may be able to take advantage of that. But, again, in fantasy playoffs, you got to play your matchups and hold on to Bortles. His matchups in the next 2 weeks are very good. Just don't play him this week. Running backs. Another guy from this game, another guy that's kind of been coming on of late, and that's Mike Davis. Seattle's finally found another starting running back since Chris Carson. And it comes in a form of a guy, I think undrafted too, who just kind of took over that. He did a great job last week and he had over 100 yards rushing. But it's fucking Jacksonville, guys. Like, again, just like Bortles in his matchup against Seattle, I love what he has afterwards. Davis is the same way. I think he gets the Rams and then I think maybe the Cardinals. I don't know, not the Cardinals. I think he gets the Rams this week and then somebody else. But either way, it's Dallas. But either way, it's this is not a good matchup for him. Now, Davis could be a guy that can help you win your championships or push you in there. But this week is not that week. You got to play your matchups. He's a hot name right now, kind of, but it's fucking Jacksonville. So be smart. Next, Jonathan Stewart. Look, Hopper hates Panthers. I've been down on Stewart all season long. Nick's been but he's been decent lately. He's scored twice the last 2 weeks. He's run better. I think he's over 4 yards per carry. But, He's banged up. He's got a toe injury. He hasn't practiced yet. And he goes up against one of the best run defenses in football, and that'd be Minnesota. Got to look elsewhere. I wouldn't trust it this week. I'm not even super high on McCaffrey if Stewart doesn't go, which means you're going to be reliant on even him more, which means they can probably scheme to stop the pass, those check down pass rush more. Do not like Jonathan Stewart this week, and I'm pretty low on all of them. Next, tight ends. I kind of hinted at both of these. Greg Olsen he's gonna be back on track to play, but he gets the Vikings, who are a top 6 defense against tight ends right now in the season, and you can't I love Greg Olsen. I do. He's one of my favorites, man. I love this guy. He's helped me a bunch in my times playing fantasy football. But first round of the playoffs, coming off injury, probably going to be on a snap count, kind of. The Vikings got a fantastic pass rush, and Olsen is a great blocker, which means they could be helping them if they can't contain that. It's not like him this week. Next, Vernon Davis, similar boat, except Davis has been healthy and has done shit in 2+ matchups. Now gets a top 5 defense against tight ends in the Chargers, which means you can't trust him even more so. Plus, a lot like what Olsen could do this week, Davis has done so far since Washington's O-line has been banged up. They've asked him to block. Not the best blocker in the world, but he's been asked to, which means he's not going to be able to get out there and catch passes. You can't play him this week. You just can't trust it. 2 bad weeks again in 2+ matchups. Now he gets a shitty matchup, a really bad matchup, and I don't know how you can trust him. So that's all I got for my certain sits bros and brodettes. Hopefully you guys do well. I hope I've done some research kind of ish with this, as much as I can do given my work schedule. So I hope you guys do well. I'm praying for the same thing for myself, obviously, and for my co-hosts kind of in certain leagues. So that's all I got. Tomorrow I'll get Nick on again doing his Anything Can Happen Thursday. Hopper DFS plays on Friday, Saturday ins and outs, which are important, even more so now we're in the playoffs. We're going to go record here in a little bit. I hope you guys have a fantastic Wednesday. Good luck on Thursday night. Falcons Saints, going to be a fucking great game. All right, guys. Peace.